Hey, Pete, do you see that? I sure do, Willie. What is that? Not entirely sure, Pete. Looks like a bright ball of light. Sure does, Pete. It looks to me like it's getting bigger. It's heading right for us, Willie. Well, would you look at that? It's a cyborg. Well, hot diggity damn, Willie. What's he doing, Pete? It looks like he's fixing to kill us. It was nice knowing you, Pete. You too, Willie.
Welcome to one of the finest shows on Spreaker, the Apocalypse Show.
Thank you. That was the Blake and Jade show. As we all know, that's Blake and Jade. And I don't think they need much of an introduction. To be honest, I've been missing their shows live, but they do have a great enough show to where you can listen to it on archive and just be just fine, because it's a good enough show. And I wouldn't just say that just to kiss their ass or anything like that. I probably wouldn't mention them if they sucked. I just wouldn't. I feel bad mentioning shit shows. So they have a good show. And even though they are British, and I'm not really too sure I trust British people, just because if there's 65 million people in the UK, and the UK is essentially the size of Oregon, and that population keeps growing and growing, I don't trust those people. And they all hate guns, which makes me wonder about them, that maybe they'll be taken over soon, but not by themselves. But that's another issue. I want to welcome everybody to my show. I have not done a show in about 10 days. Now, I could lie and sit here and tell you why I haven't done a show, but it's 3 specific things. Laziness, more laziness, and just no determination to do a show. You know, it's just been mostly me out there listening to all your guys' show out in the Spreakerverse. I've been calling into a lot of different shows as well. So it wasn't just me avoiding everybody by not doing a show. It's me partaking in your shows and in your chats. So this is a weird hour to do a show. And I want to thank Andrew, a.k.a. Zodiac, for coming to my show. You see, Aussie Andrew knows that it's up to him to do a show next. He knows he has to do a show. Eventually he's going to have to sit down and figure out all this Spreaker shit. Because me, just like him, I was a chat warrior for a while, but then the demand came for me to do a show, and I was like, fuck it, okay. Even Barko, previous to his career on Spreaker, he was a talk shoe, aka talk shit junkie. He never did a show on there. I think he did occasionally call into various shows, but after a while of being here, he decided it was time to buckle up. Him and RD do a show, but RD never comes on his show. RD is very, very sensitive, and he's a total Eurofag. And that's okay, because I hear Aussie Andrew can always go on Bastard FC and essentially be RD, and so the real RD isn't really needed anymore. You know, he's been replaced by a fellow Aussie, although Andrew is a Polak Aussie, and then the real RD is a Dutch Aussie. So we have these different personalities and all these different cultures on Spreaker is what makes us great. Another thing that makes Spreaker great is the lack of black people on here, because usually they're so dangerous, and wow, I don't want to have to do a wallet check every 5 minutes live on my show, because that would be pretty racist, and I don't consider myself racist. I consider myself just old country, if you know what I mean. So what I want to talk about today is it's been 10 days since I've done a show, so I may or may not actually have shit to talk about. It's not just total out of my asshole fucking, let's see what I have here, Greenbrier Farms roasted and salted peanuts. I'm not going to talk about what I had last night for dinner. I'm going to talk about real and substantial information. That's what I do here. Okay. Now, obviously, this is going to be about mostly other personalities, but we deal with these people and we gotta set them straight. Stabby, the other day, Stabby McHugs, we all know him as an ambiguously sexual man. He brought up a topic, and that was that when he grew up, and he volunteered all this information, so we can talk about it, because he talked about it, And that's a big problem on here, is a lot of people volunteer all of this information, and then they get mad when you talk about it. One would think, don't talk about shit you don't want others to talk about, but, well, we just can't have that sort of logic around here. Anyway, Stabby talked about how he grew up like, I'm screwing this all up. When he was a teenager, the discussion of gay stuff, gay marriage, gay all this took place. And he said as a teenager, he hung out with a lot of older gay people. I don't know about you guys, but teenagers should really be hanging out with other teenagers. And, there might be more to this story that he's not saying, but I'm sorry. Teenagers need to be hanging out with teenagers. High schoolers need to be hanging out with high schoolers. And college kids need to be hanging out with seniors from high school. That's the way it goes. So when he was saying that he hung out with older gay men, I'm thinking maybe something might have happened. There might have been some moves done. He talked about going to all these different gay parades. Let me be quite clear here. There's a big difference between, maybe there's not, but if you spend so much time going to all these different gay parades, and supposedly you're straight, quote unquote, you generally, you might go to a parade maybe once or twice, but you don't go all the time, and you don't surround yourself with a whole bunch of gay people. And what I mean by that is that there's only a certain amount of gay people. I would say it's probably about 3% of the population. Some say it's 5, some say it's 10, but either way we can all agree it's a very, very small percentage. So when you go out of your way to mostly hang out with gay people, maybe because you have an interest in that, maybe because there's something in you that is gay. Because to me, I don't go out of my way to hang out with gays. If they happen to be cool, if they're into the same subjects I'm in, which hardly is ever, but you go hang out with people that have some of the similar interests, and that's that. But maybe this is what he's interested in. Unfortunately, gays oftentimes make their sexual orientation part of their hobby. They make it, and maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it's just because, they worry about all these equal rights and all this. But last I checked, there's discrimination, there's lawyers, and you can really screw people over now. So it's nothing bad like it used to be to them. So something's just really odd, irks me about that statement that Stabby, he hung out with older gay people as a teenager. Even hanging out with a lot of older people in general was creepy. Like, I had this one friend in high school, and she threw this big party. She was a super rich kid. She lived out in kind of the burbs of Phoenix, and her daddy had a huge-ass mansion, right? And so you could get pretty damn crazy in there. And at the time, I was sort of new to alcohol and drugs and all that, because I think I was only like 15 at the time. Because I didn't really have my first sip of alcohol until I was 15, believe it or not. I smoked pot when I was 14. But yeah, and so I went to this party, and the chick there, she was dating like a 20-year-old, and she was 16, and that subject got brought up, like, hey dude, you're like 20, you're a sophomore in college, what are you doing dating a sophomore in high school? That's kind of weird. And I tend to agree. I think it's better just to date within an institution. Like, all high schoolers should be able to date all high schoolers. college people should be able to date college, with the exception of maybe a senior in high school dating a college. That's fine, I guess. But whole point was, it was creepy, and it was noticed, and it was talked about, and it was discussed, and it was a big deal at the time. And she ended up breaking up with him because a lot of us said, okay, well, you know, you're kind of a creep, dude, and you know, why do you like this chick? Well, at the time, I'll be honest, as I liked her, so I just would have went along with anything to get rid of the dude. But now looking back, I guess I was probably on the right side, but just not for the right reasons at the moment. You know, I was thinking with my pecker, not my head. And so, yeah, that happened. And then so when I think about Stabby and him hanging out with a whole bunch of old gay dudes and going to all these marches, I'm thinking, honestly, he's bisexual at least, because you don't just, you know, blindly go all that. Like, gay porn to straight men disgusts us. It does. If you look at gay porn, try it. If you don't believe me, try it. Try to look at gay porn, and I'm talking about male on male. I guess female on female, not too big of a deal, but guy on guy. Even if you have a face of disgust, if you're straight. If you don't have that face of disgust, if you don't look away after 1 second, like chances are you're probably bi or gay. And I don't really believe in bisexual males. I think bisexual males is just another term for bi heterosexuality. Because if you have the urge to try dick, probably a good reason for that. Nowadays, I guess there's, I don't know. This is so fucking screwed. But enough about Stabby. So Stabby, if you're gay, I don't want you to hide in the closet anymore. And that's fine if you are, because look, 5x5 here is gay. He's an Afro-American, and he's a bear, he described himself. And he's gay. And then there's Iconoclast, which I haven't talked to in about 2 years, but he's also a gay, also a black gay. It's weird. 2 black gays on street, whatever. But, yeah, so I just don't want you to be like that, Stabby. I don't want you to hide. I want Stabby to be Stabby, if that makes sense. Another thing. We're going to talk about Barko. Barko did some shows, and I've always been harassing Barko the last 2 weeks openly, because what he'll do is he'll do a show and delete it. And I thought, well, what about us? What about people that aren't up at meth head hours at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. doing shows? You know, are we screwed? We can't hear it, you know, the next day? Because when Goofy Bone was being chased by an FBI agent sent by Commander Guy Shea, at least Goofy Bone let those episodes stay up 24 hours. He was courteous to his fans. And so my big deal was, hey, Barko, you fuck, let us hear this, because he'd have, like, basically a lot of interesting people on a show, and then just close it out, and we couldn't hear anything, and I was like, well, what the fuck? You know, because I'd hear stuff about these shows, and I'd want to listen, but I couldn't. But certain people around here, thankfully, know how to retrieve deleted shows, because he'll actually delete them. I think he says he does download, and if you do message him, he'll give it to you if you beg enough, I think it is. But, I mean, come on. Does it have to come to that? I mean, maybe, Barko, if you're being reasonable, maybe keep these episodes up for 24 hours. That way, certain people can actually listen. They can download it if they want and listen later. Because not all of us have the ability to be up at 4 a.m. to listen. You know, we just don't. Some of us do. Actually, a lot of us do, but a lot don't either. So, you have to accept that, Barko. And here's another thing. Last night, Barko did like a 10-hour marathon. He got very dyslexian, because he's the only other guy I know that's really done a marathon that long. And I was on the phone with Barko probably for 3 or 4 hours of that little block he did. And truly, this is